Good morning. Thank you for taking time to join us today. My name is Joe Mansueto. I'm with Godlan. For the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to be talking about doing personalizations within SyteLine, the ability to personalize, extend, and add capabilities to SyteLine to better support your business. Today we have two presenters, Warren Smith and Dave Simpson. Warren is a senior business solutions consultant with the Godlan team. He has served in senior leadership positions for over 25 years in the automotive industry and has been with Godlan and previously Infor for a total of 9 years. Dave is a senior technical consultant for the Godlan team. Dave is responsible for developing personalizations for our pre-sales demos. Dave has 5 years of SyteLine experience in development and has been with Godlan for 3 years. Well, with introductions done and the guys are ready to go, I'd like to turn things over to Warren.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us. We've got a great hour set up for you here, and what we really want to strive to go for here is make sure that you've got some questions or some tricks, perhaps, or some tips as well that can be added in. So we're going to make this very really looking for some audience participation at the end here. And once we run through the presentation, if you would start thinking about your questions, post them on the chat line here, right through the GoToMeeting webinar chat line, and we'll make sure we get those answered at the end. So with that, we're going to take a look at Mongoose. And what really, Mongoose is the core technology that really makes SyteLine run here. And what we're going to be doing is running through some of the highlights of Mongoose and some of the new features in Mongoose. We're going to run through some forms personalization, some things that really can make the software work a little bit better for you, really kind of tune it up. And again, this is one of those unique capabilities of SyteLine, is the Mongoose technology. I don't believe it's really found in any other major ERP. Of the flexibility and capability that you've got to really make the forms your own, make the data your own. Then what we're going to do is go into some data wizards, and I'm going to turn this over to Dave, and Dave is our data wizard, and he's going to be showing you data wizards. And for example, how to build out completely new SQL tables, data structures, etc. And we're going to take a look at even bringing in external databases into the SyteLine application. So, for example, if you've got maybe it's tool systems that are not in SyteLine, you want to bring that data in. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Then I'm going to move over and show you a little trick on Excel and how to bring in IDOs and data into Excel directly from SyteLine, right through the IDOs at that point. We'll also show you how to then maybe access some of SyteLine with HTTP and some smart URLs, and then of course the questions and answers. So again, we'll go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be showing you the Mongoose and SyteLine based on version 9.10 and 9.20. That's the 9.20 is the current release version of SyteLine. And if you're running an earlier version of SyteLine, perhaps earlier 9 or 8, you may find some of these functions are available. And so its actual mileage may vary a little bit here, but we're going to show you the latest and greatest of what we're seeing out here, and because there's really some nice things that are added out there. So let's take a look real quick here, and taking a look at what are some of the key enhancements in Mongoose. And again, this is Mongoose 9. You're going to find that you've got the capability of creating a lot more friendly pages, and this is a lot more color to them. For example, embedded images, embedded charts, being able to really make the forms and screens much easier to use, much easier to make sure you've got accurate data, making sure your users are much more engaged with the software. So you're going to be able to find a lot more enhanced user interfaces. One of those neat user interfaces is drag and drop, being able to take one field and dragging it to another field on the form. This is something brand new that's it's in 90020 available, and but really can make your ability to do some data entry a lot quicker, being able to do some drag and drop capabilities across the forms and such. So I'll show you how to do that in a minute. We've also got the capability, and by the way, I did not pick this color, so don't blame me. And but anyway, the ability to do some gradient colorings and on fields and such. I'm also going to show you how to do that too. So it makes the forms a little bit easier. Making sure that critical data pops out very, very quickly there. We've also got the new charts and gauges. sometimes in the past here, some of the folks said, geez, up the gauges aren't so pretty. Well, we've worked up with using fusion charts, and those are embedded. And again, that's actually in 9.0010 that those fusion charts were available, and you can add those to your pages, and so you can customize them and tailor them in Mongoose as well, and bring them into your SyteLine pages as charts and graphs. We've also added multi-device support. What does this mean for you here? It means that you can create a form, and for example, such as our form here, our purchase order receiving form, which you can look at in a full PC-based, or maybe it's a tablet-based, something that you've got some high resolution on. You can fill it up with a lot of fields and such like that. But also, you may want to do purchase order receiving. Maybe it's on a wireless device. Well, you can take the same form and create two different versions of the form, and those two forms can be called by the device type when they're called up. So for example, that same purchase order receiving form, all the logic behind it and everything stays the same, but the rendering can be for a mobile device that fits a mobile device better, has only the selected forms, maybe some other forms are defaulted, etc. And all you have to do is determine, when you're building the form, is what is the device type, as you see in the lower right-hand corner. So being able to take a look at the individual device type. Do I want to, how many different renderings? And it's really unlimited as to the device types that you can define. Really helps to make the usability significantly enhanced there, and that's in version 9.0010 as well as 20. We've done quite a bit of work, and this is quite a bit of a differentiator here from those that are running, let's say, version 8 of SyteLine. In the application event system, Workflow Wizard. In the versions of 8, workflows really were version 1, just starting out here. But as you start moving into version 9, the workflows have been greatly enhanced. And there's also the Workflow Wizard to really let even end users create their own workflows. For example, when we talk about a workflow, maybe it's a credit check. So you make the credit check, what are the steps that it has to follow, who has to get involved step by step, and being able to really utilize workflows in a more pervasive way across all of SyteLine. So we've really come a long ways, and that's actually core in Mongoose. So it's available here. We've also got the ability, for example, to use a lot of predefined fields here. Average outstanding balance, for example, greater than 10,000. This is a simple one here. So my workflow says anytime my average balance outstanding grows greater than 10,000, to do something. It might be to notify someone, send an email, maybe put the customer on hold. Who knows? You can do any of those business capabilities here. We've also got the ability to have a nice diagram, and you could actually click on the individual sections of the diagram, pull up what's going on, but to have a graphical view. And when the event is in progress, you can click on the event handler diagram and actually see where it is, at what stage it is. So for example, let's say it's hung up on someone's inbox because they haven't made the decision. You can find that very, very quickly. And even in some of your events, you could even put some escalation and such in there. So you really can use this to really run the business very, very tightly on that event handler. So that's a lot of enhancements that have been done in the event handler capability. For those of you who run multi-site support, some great enhancements inside of Mongoose specifically into the multi-site support. So you can run really in a single database all your individual sites. There's also the ability of running groups and site groups, for example. Works great if you're running almost like in a multi-tenant environment, perhaps, where you want to be able to have groups of organizations together. Maybe it's you've got a larger company, etc. But there's been a lot of work done in the multi-site support to get those into a single application database, and then the shared tables, etc. So a lot of work's been done in that area too. So that might be something if it's of interest as you get into version 9. So with that, I'm going to jump into a little bit of live software here and show you a little bit about personalizations. So I started with my customer code here, and what you're going to see here. Let me just I need to make my screen go. There we go. All right. So what I've done here in this particular case, I've done a couple little personalizations here. One of them, of course, is I use the gradient on the form here to make sure that we've got the address. But I've also added some neat little features here, and I'm going to show you how this is done very quickly here. For example, being able to map it. Now what I'm doing is I'm actually going to take the address and the zip code and create a link. And what I did is I just created a very quick link to be able to drive that right into Google Maps, and believe it or not, that's exactly in Atlanta where Infor's office is located. So being able to drop that right in, right as a live link. And I've also been able to do things, for example, such as you might want to look up D&B info, for example. Again, little bit of a different link here. Being able to pull up D&B's. There we go. Now notice it came up, it didn't find any results, and that's not unusual, for example, looking at D&B. But here's the neat part. As soon as I refine my search, notice it picked up all of the relevant information already. So it pre-populated that just directly from my link. And you can say, okay, well, how did I do that? So let's go back and take a look at how I added my Mapit and how I added my DB info. And these are a couple of simple personalizations that were done. So let's go into design mode here real quick. And I'll start with the first one here, the simple one, which is my my properties here. And what I've been able to do is take a look at my my background colors here. And I said that now we have, for example, the ability to take a look at creating a gradient. And I can select my two colors, my top color, my bottom color. I can say that I want this to move down. I can say right, left, etc. So really being able to take a look at creating that exactly how I want it. So a real simple one there on creating the gradients. Now, how did I do these little buttons here? These are really kind of simple here. And you think about how easy could it be to go take data that is replaceable or dynamic data that's on the form and run it into a URL. So in this particular case, I created an event. We'll just call it Google Map here. And what did I do in this Google Map here? Created my event. And I said, go to URL as the type. And of course, I have many different types of things I can do. In this case, I'm running a URL. I could run a script. I could run a form. I could run a linked form, run scripts, set web containers. I can do many different things. I could execute an executable. So for example, maybe I wanted to open up a CAD file, but I had to actually run the CAD software. So I could actually run the executable, and I can replace some parameters to actually call the file name. So, and I'll show you how to do that here. But we're going to go to the URL here. And how did I do that? I went in and I gave my parameters. Now, individual my parameters here was I used the link, https, google.com, maps, place, and notice it says P with a parentheses, address 1, comma, P, zip code. What that says is P, meaning a parameter, go get the value that's in the address 1 value, comma, parameter, and go get the zip code. Two pieces of information I can pass. So very simple of being able to pass that information, those parameters. So it makes it really, really easy to do that. And by the way, if anyone wants the these links here as pre-built, I'll send them to you here. You can kind of just cut and paste those right in, and I'll send them to you here. You know, my Dun and Bradstreet here, I did a little bit very similar. I just called this one D&B info. Different URL here. We can edit that one up. Kind of the same thing. In this particular case here, we're just replacing a lot of those fields here, and I just took the D&B, my credit D&B, search, business name, P, the name, the address, and just keep replacing the parameters as you go, and it will replace those parameters. So very straightforward there. So that's a little bit about those parameters. Now, for those of you who maybe are not as familiar with SyteLine and Mongoose here, being able to add completely new fields. In this particular case here, I'm going to just jump over to my items form here, and I did a couple of other ones here. For example, in my items form here, I did a find it and I did a search. So very similar things here. So for example here, if I had my 50 horsepower motor and I can say find it, Well, what that's going to do is it's actually going to jump over to Grainger.com and find my actual 50 horsepower motor based on my my link information there. So that was a little bit about my find it here. Now what I did also, I had a little bit of fun here. I created a form called extended descriptions. So in this particular case here, these are actually fields that didn't exist before. So we actually added some whole completely new fields. And what Dave is going to show you here is not only can these fields be inside of SyteLine, these fields could actually be from a third-party SQL or Oracle database. So very, very straightforward here. We'll click on our design mode here. And for example, let's go ahead and add a brand new field. So in this particular case here, we'll say, let's just do an edit button here. And we'll just move that one over. We'll just slide it down here. And we'll add a static, some text. FIELD. Okay. This is my field, and by the way, what we can do is we can even take some things such as lining these up. So, and there we go. Make it nice and pretty there. Now what we've got to do is we've got to tell this field, well, where am I going to get the data from? So in this particular case here, I'm just going to take a real simple one here and say, well, you know, this is going to be just a, we could say it's a variable, it's a property. We can say it's a number of there's a number of things where we can get the data source from. So in this particular case here, I'm just going to get a property, and we've got a collection, happens to be, let's go grab it from GDL Items. So because this is a brand new field, and we're going to call it Days Supply. So brand new field, we've added a brand new field, that's all it takes. Go back there, drop it down, and now this is my field, and this is and I had added a text box in here as well. When we save that, we're all set and ready to go. So we've added a new field based on a new data collection, and that one happened to be one that was called GDL Items that we had added as a whole new collection, a whole new IDO. So very, very straightforward there of being able to do a little bit of forms personalization, adding new fields, rearranging new fields. You know, some other things that we can do here, for example, for those of you who are new, we may say, well, you know, I really don't care that, you know, my alternate items here, you know, I can highlight both of those. I can take a look and behave and say, you know what, I just want those to go away because we never use those. You know, watch this, when I come back, those are gone. So you can streamline up and simplify your forms, make them exactly the way you want for your users. So a little bit about forms personalization here. By the way, you can add new links and such like that. As a matter of fact, let me pop in here and just give you an idea of what you can do. We could add, you know, buttons, calendars, charts, the plethora of things that you can add to this. So any of these things that you add, really all you have to do is tell it, you know, how do you want it to show up, where do you want to get your data from, and various other pieces of information. Very straightforward. Takes you very little time to learn how to do this. You don't have to be a programmer. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave. So Dave, when you go in and create, you're going to be creating not only the IDO, you're going to really go out and create a whole SQL table, the forms. You're going to do all that, right?
That is correct.
And you don't need to have any SQL background. You don't have to do any select froms and add tos and all the other SQL language, right?
That is correct.
Boy, I like that.
Yep. And we're going to do all of that in a matter of minutes. So what I'm going to demonstrate for you now is how to use the new data maintenance wizard to create a webinar feedback table and the form to enter data and retrieve data into your table. So let's start with that. There we go. Okay, so we're going to name our form, then our table webinar feedback. All right. Okay.
And Dave, you're just kind of following a best practice there by naming your projects, kind of, in this case, GDL, you're kind of grouping them together so you can manage them correctly, right?
That is correct.
Good.
Okay, and then our form is going to be a multi-view type. You have the option of choosing the multi-view form or just a grid only or detail, but for this demonstration we're going to use multi-view.
Super. That's kind of what almost all the SyteLine forms are, right?
Mm-hmm. And the device type, like Warren demonstrated earlier, you can have a form that is suitable for iPhone or iPad or your web browser, which is the default, and that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to create a records ID field, first name, last name, email, and a comments field.
And pretty much everything already filled in for you, didn't it? Picked up the length of the fields and everything for you. Good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then in here too, we can also select which fields are going to be required. So I'll do that for the name, last name, and we'll use the ID as the primary key. Required.
So the background, Dave, this is actually creating the SQL table right now and the intelligent data object that matches to that, correct?
Correct, as well as the form.
Nice.
We're done.
Wow. So we got a webinar feedback form already.
You have your tables, you have the IDOs already developed for you. And here are your property. There's your ID, first, last, email, comment. And there's your webinar feedback form
Super.
with the required fields already selected for you.
And then if you wanted to go change this form, you could go into Designer and stretch those fields out, design the form, put a background on there, make them whatever. Perfect. Yeah.
Sure could. So yeah, this new data wizard, we've taken a job that may have taken a half hour to an hour previously and completed it within all of 5 to 10 minutes. And not only, go ahead, one.
And it's error-free too, because if you didn't in the past, if you didn't get the SQL right, and you had a really sometimes, you miss a comma, miss a semicolon, whatever. It was always a little frustrating for someone that didn't do SQL a lot.
Right. Okay. And that's it for the new data maintenance wizard. Now I'm going to demonstrate how you can create a form using tables from your own database or an external database. So we'll open up the IDO link databases form. So we'll go out to my SQL Server, and we have a database called named the Godlan sample. And inside of that sample database, I've created a table with for the webinar registration that I pre-populated. So let's select. There we are. So we have our attendees and the webinar name, and we're going to create a form in SyteLine using this information. There we go. So we'll create we'll add the new link database. I'm going to use the SQL Server database. You can also use an Oracle database if you have.
Yep. And Dave, I think in the database name too, you can even have that on a different SQL server. You just have to put the SQL server name, as I recall, in front of that too.
Yep, that is correct. Okay.
So now we'll go create the IDO from the view.
Yes. Okay. So we're gonna GDL primary base table.
There we go.
Webinar registration. There we are. Okay. Click next. So there's all of our fields from the external table, the database. Click finish.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. Okay, so now we use the the new form.
Now we can go create a form because we have an IDO now.
Right.
And there's all our fields. Hey, how about that?
And you can arrange the order of your fields with the webinar ID at the top. Name.
Rearrange that on the form there, and you're ready to go.
Yep, we can. Okay. And we'll click next. Refresh, and then there's all of our data. You can add the labels. Over here. Web ID. You can do this for each of the fields, and you can arrange the columns just like Warren demonstrated in his forms personalization demo.
Hey, thank you, Dave. Very good. I'll show my screen back here. Now, what I'm going to do here is show you just kind of a last little trick here or tip. You know, pulling data in and out of Excel, we've in the past, you've seen the copy paste into the forms table and such like that. But there's sometimes where you may want to load a lot more data or pulling data out. So, for example, maintaining items is a very common one here. And what we can do here is be able to actually go out and pull these items. And all this is doing is actually using a IDO script in order to do this. And it actually went out and pulled all the items here. For example, and let's see, maybe it was a different one here that I pulled down. There we go. So notice it's pulling based on planner codes. So I could pull them down by item numbers and say, well, how do I do this here? So really, all this is a very straightforward set of macros here, and there's actually some other ones here, but this one happens to be download items. And a little bit of script, And by the way, if you'd like this, I'm more than happy to send it to you and give you some tricks on how to send it up in here. But really all we're doing is connecting to the IDO server or the SyteLine server, passing it some information here as my username, password, which happen to be a different tab, and I'll show you that in a minute here, creating some filtering on that, and basically doing the request at that point to get the items. Now you could use this for items, you could use it for customers, you can take this same form here and seeing take a look at how it was done and really reuse this anywhere. So again, I'm more than happy to send you the snippets of code here. It's not that much code. It looks like a lot, but a lot of this is just making sure it gets actually formatted on the screen properly. So real simple way to do it, and to set that up in the form here. And by the way, it's set up here, for example, getting our username, password, and everything, and rocking and rolling from there. So a little bit of how to use Excel and actually grabbing IDOs directly in commands through SyteLine. So just a little trick there. And now I'm going to get you the last piece of it here. Sometimes you want to be able to call SyteLine, and in fact, let me pop into my form here. I call those smart URLs in SyteLine because now it's visible via the web directly, just via HTML5 browser. You can make calls with intelligent URLs to actually open the individual forms directly and even apply filters. So for example, let's say you have a external application, or maybe it's a shop floor terminal that as soon as the browser opens, and you want to really keep everybody captive, so you've only listed that browser. You set it up so when the machine boots up, it opens a browser, goes right to a URL. You can now do that inside of SyteLine, and what's nice about this is you can actually pass the information and all the parameters right inside that URL. And again, I'll pass these on to you if you'd like a little snippet here. But really all it does is consist of the URL of the server. Now this first one's going to be 90010's version of it. Going to the default ASPX call, what form do you want to open, is there a filter associated with it, setting any variables such as you want to go into refresh, etc. That's 90010. Now in 90020 it even opens up some additional capabilities here because you can embed the username and password in here. So for example, let's say it's that shop floor system and you don't want to have people entering their shop floor data, so you can actually pass that username and password directly right from the browser. And I'm going to show you how to do that real quick here. I keep a little table here of all my my runs here. So what I'm going to do is this one here is going to actually go and grab the item FA10000 directly from my form here. So we're going to just do a copy on that. We'll open the browser up here, and all we have to do is we're just going to paste that in. So this could even be our home page here. And what this is actually going to do is open it right up and go right into our FA10000 here, right from a cold start. So I've opened the browser right from a cold start, popped in my FA10000, and now I'm into that particular form here. We also use this for example, on the factory track at shop floor, which is also written in Mongoose. Makes a great way to set up a shop floor terminal at this point. So again, a couple of different ways of opening up a browser directly right from SyteLine here. You notice I said we do that with factory track as well. As a matter of fact, in particular here, there's even some of those additional commands such as opening with a form only, so there's no menu bar, opening them in the mobile device, so device type itself can be set in this, so really gives you that capability. And I like being able to set these. So you can use these as URLs, you can do callbacks from other applications and such. So just a little bit about how to open the browsers up. So with that, I'm going to actually turn this back over for questions. And if you've got questions now, post them onto the chat line. And if Joe, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Warren. We had one question that was specific about versions of SyteLine. Mongoose 8 was mentioned.
Yes.
I'm not personally sure how far back we go as far as having made this kind of, I think it's somewhere in SyteLine 8, if not at the beginning of SyteLine 8, but any insight you can provide us as to how far back our customers can get this type of capability for their version of SyteLine if they're not ready to upgrade to SyteLine 9?
Exactly. Yeah, and there's some patches on Mongoose as well. And again, I wanted to go through and set this up so I was running against a current environment here of 9.00.10 at least, or version 9.
Yep.
In SyteLine 8, what people can try to do is, depending on, again, what patched version of Mongoose they're running, some of these things may be available, some of them obviously are not. And it just depends on what specific version of that Mongoose version that they're running. And again, that comes from, if you pop into that window about Mongoose, you can kind of get an idea of what the Mongoose web client that you're running is. So,
excellent. We have one more question. Can Mongoose be purchased separately for use with applications outside of SyteLine?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, as a matter of fact, that might be your best way to get the current version of Mongoose. Mongoose is available as a separately licensed application. And so if you're wanting to build, for example, a system that is completely separate from SyteLine, maybe connects to data that's in SyteLine externally, but you're going to build something that really has, it's not going to be built into the licensing of SyteLine. You want to license those users separately. You know, maybe it's a system maybe even that you want to use for your customers externally. And absolutely, you can be bought and licensed separately, all the same technologies there, so the ability to you know, have all those same tools. So it's really a very well-defined toolkit, and it can be purchased separately. It's and contact your rep for the for licensing details. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, that concludes the questions that we have. Folks, again, we appreciate you taking time from your very busy day to spend with us. If you would like further information